Thanks, Saul. I'm going to take a huge entrepreneurial risk here, and I'm going to put this water on the bee because I have been assured that the bee is sturdy. There we go. So, as Saul said, I've been writing about technology for about 26 years, most of that time at the Wall Street Journal. Then I went off on my own, started a company with a wonderful business partner and friend. We sold that company. I went to another startup, terrific company called Vox Media based in Washington, D.C., and I retired on July 3rd. And I tried to convince Saul to let me come up here and act like an expert on retirement, but he pointed out that 2 months doesn't really let you qualify for that. So instead, he said, could you give us kind of an overview of where we've come from in personal technology and where we are now and where we're heading in 15 minutes, 13 minutes and 47 seconds. And I said yes. And it's actually a good exercise because I'm writing a book that is kind of about that right now. This year may mean a lot of things to everybody here. It's the first year of the political apocalypse. It's the year of the solar eclipse, terrible natural disasters, a number of things may strike you. But what you may not be aware of is that this year is exactly the 40th anniversary of the personal technology revolution, the personal computing revolution, the digital revolution, basically. Because in 1977, the first mass market PCs came out. And I have to use mass market in quotes because you still had to know a certain amount to use them. And the most successful of those was the Apple II. And that was the start of the Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak story, which goes right through the $1,000 iPhone yesterday. But I want you to think about the idea that a revolution, and that's not a hype word, it really is an absolute upending of everything, has happened in such a short time, in 40 years. That's less, that makes the entire thing from computers to digital photography, digital music, the World Wide Web, the smartphone, the tablet, artificial intelligence, voice-controlled artificial intelligence like the Echo and Siri and the Google Home device, augmented reality, which Apple demonstrated a bunch of yesterday. All of that is younger than Starbucks. It's younger than Disneyland. And it's often compared, I think accurately, to things like aviation and the railroads and aspects of the Industrial Revolution in terms of its transformative power. But the difference is the speed with which it has happened and the huge scope across all strata of society. I mean, you could be an entitled teenager in Beverly Hills, you could be a subsistence farmer in Kenya, and right now you're using digital technology and the internet to get something done. I suspect the farmer in Kenya is probably not on Snapchat, but and the kid in Beverly Hills is not looking to see what the market prices for crops are, but they're getting things done in their life digitally. So where are we and where are we headed? Well, there have been a number of big inflection points. The first one was the personal computer, and that lasted for a while. It took a while for personal computers to kind of democratize. As I said, they started in 1977. They really began to democratize in the 90s, but that was a huge thing. And if you remember, some of you may be too young, but most of you probably have some memory of, the first computer to come into your home. And that was a big deal. And it was a big box, and it was hard to use, and whatever. The next inflection point was the World Wide Web. And there's a lot of things I'm skipping. There's a lot of fascinating digital things in between. But big inflection point, World Wide Web. That was in the mid to late 90s with the introduction of the Netscape browser. And there were some other minor browsers. And then Microsoft took over the market, which, as you know, some of you know, led to an antitrust case and all that. But the web has been an enormous thing. And you know, now, and then we had mobile. Then we had the smartphone. 2007, the iPhone. This is why Apple's calling its new fancy iPhone the iPhone 10, because it's the 10th anniversary one. And of course, Android coming along about a little over a year after that. These are the big inflection points we've had so far, but what are the big inflection points next? And I want to talk about what I call ambient computing. I think that's where we're going next. And it doesn't matter to me whether you think technology is important or whether you think it's not going to solve the Taco Bell or the healthcare problem, and I agree with much of what Len said earlier. It's a mistake to think technology by itself is going to solve something. You have to use it as a tool. Change. What do I mean by ambient computing? So how many people here have an Amazon Echo? That's quite a lot. Or a Google Home? One. There's the Google. Do you have Google stock? I mean, you have both of them. All right. So you're totally confused in your house. This is the very crudest beginning implementation of what I think of as ambient computing, because you can talk to those devices from a distance and you can get some useful information or even actions back. If you have smart lighting in your house or smart door lock, it can unlock the door, it can turn on or off the lights. It can tell you, and then it can give you a lot of information. It can give you news updates. It can tell you the weather. It can set a timer, whatever. It's very crude, but the cool thing about it is it's kind of ambient in the sense that you don't have to be right in front of the device manipulating it with a mouse or your fingers or anything. You just can use your voice. But it's not the computer on the Starship Enterprise. For those who don't know, I'll tell you that the computer on the Starship Enterprise, through all the various versions of Star Trek, was able to actually have a conversation with you. And it was actually, you could speak to it from anywhere on the ship. You could ask it anything. Visual if it needed to. If you don't know an engineer or know a developer, please believe me that these people, no matter how young they are, have this idea in the backs of their heads. And there are thousands of people working on this right now at all the big tech companies and at small companies whose names we don't even know yet. Ambient computing will mean that this theater, this grand old theater, could one day have computers on this carpet I'm standing on, in the ceiling, in the seats. You will have computers, that is processors and sensors and connections to the cloud in your clothing. It will know when a certain percentage of the seats are filled and when they're not. That may help get people in from an intermission. In a home, it may know whether to raise or lower the temperature based on how many people are in a room. You're going to be able to just talk to the walls, talk to the table. You're laughing, but I'm telling you, these guys in Silicon Valley, this is what they're working on. And there will be no computer in sight. I mean, if I look out over the audience, I see a bunch of of computers. It looks a little like an Apple store, actually. And I don't know if it'll totally replace those laptops, but the point is you're going to be able to do a lot by just being in a space that has intelligence, that has connectivity, that benefits from machine learning. Now, obviously, a couple of things are apparent. Number one, we're a long way from that. I asked Jeff Bezos, whose company made the Amazon Echo, about this about a year and a half ago on stage, and he said, I said, are we in the first inning of this game? And he said, no, we're at the first batter in the first inning of the game. So it's about a 10-year process that these guys are going through, these companies are going through. So the first thing is, we're just at the beginning. Second thing is, we have no idea how to deal with the privacy and security issues that this is going to raise. I mean, the Equifax thing was horrible, but there have already been massive intrusions on Internet of Things in people's homes. Every day there's an attack on some system somewhere. And the companies, even when there isn't a hacker attack, the companies like Facebook and Google are happily scooping up your private information to use for their own business model without you having explicitly said it's okay in every variation and instance. If the very room you walk into at work or at home or at the doctor's office or at this theater is a computer and is ambient, if your clothing is intelligent and is going to do some possibly positive things for you, like help you be a better patient, we have to stop in the United States dancing around these privacy and security issues. We are the only developed country in the world that has no national privacy and security laws to protect consumers. We're also the only country, and this is also very important, particularly because all of the leadership on this is coming out of the United States. And we also have an increasing urgent need for these kinds of laws, not only because of the trends I'm describing, but because of the consolidation of power in the tech industry among what are often called the Gang of Five companies, Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Some people throw Netflix in, but I don't really think it's on the same scale as those guys. These are platform companies that people like Netflix build their products to run on. And there is no real regulation. In fact, it was considered a holy tenet of the free market for many years. Don't regulate anything to do with the internet. Don't touch these guys. Well, they have accumulated a lot of power. And this thing I'm describing to you, this ambient computing, is just going to, I think, make it more urgent that we find the balance that allows them to continue to pursue these things, including autonomous driving, which is another part of ambient computing, at the same time putting into place some reasonable guardrails to protect us. So, thanks. Add that to the list of things you're going to call your congressman about. But so technology doesn't rest, it moves on, and it's moving to the point where it'll be everywhere, it'll be everything. This is not a science fiction thing. It's absolutely happening. There are timetables for this, and I don't know, it may even make BIF quite different in 10 years. We'll see what Saul wants to do with it. Thank you.
So, stay with me for just 1 second here. Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure, knowing Kurt Columbus, this will not be the first theater to have ambient computing installed in it, knowing Kurt and how he thinks about it. But I do agree with you, that's the trend. Let me just, while you're still here, let's talk for just a minute about the retirement thing. Right, so I've been watching you, and when you first put out there that you were retiring, I mean, you've had a retirement. It's like you're a Red Sox fan, so I can use the example of the David Ortiz, Big Papi farewell tour season, right?
That big, but it was a retirement tour.
No. But congratulations for that. I think it's incredible. Just give me a minute on like what's next. You said you're writing a book. Like, what are you going to do?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about some of the things I just said and some things I didn't say that really talks about who I met and what I saw at the digital revolution, because I was lucky enough to be in a very influential position. I didn't invent anything. I'm not responsible for any of it, but influential in the sense that I got to meet these people and talk to them. I think you mentioned that before. And see the products often first. And so I have a lot of thoughts and ideas and stories and things to tell, and that's what the book will be about. And by the way, it will have this ambient computing stuff in it. So the book I don't even have a publisher yet, but there's your plug for the book. I'd love to have a slide with it, but I don't know. And then the other thing that I can't stress enough is I'm on the board of an organization called the News Literacy Project. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk about this for a minute. So, you all know about the fake news controversy. It's very real, but it goes way beyond just purely hoaxes written by kids in Macedonia. It goes to the whole question of, do young people understand how to evaluate what they read? And the answer, I think, is they don't. We don't have civics anymore in schools. Because of the social media, my friend Saul, this wouldn't happen, but I'll just use this as an example. So Saul's my friend and I trust him. If he shares an article with me, the article is, maybe it's not totally bogus, but it's completely slanted or not properly sourced or whatever, particularly if it's something he and I agree on, I may the way this works. We at the News Literacy Project have an online curriculum that's being used across the country in classrooms to teach high school seniors who are going to be voters like in a year how to evaluate what they read. It's nonpartisan and it goes beyond fake news. So I'm devoting a lot of my time to that.
Thank you. And I know we're going to stay connected. We always value your opinions. Thank you. Thank you, Walt.